Hi, I'm Kelsie Toole with Chicago Title. Joining me today is Mykel Pamperin, our systems administrator here at Chicago Title. Thank you so much for joining me today. How are you?
Good, Kelsie. How are you?
I'm fabulous. I think it's hilarious, actually, that I got an IT guy to do a video with me.
Is that because we're not usually all that social?
Yes, you are the exception to the rule when it comes to people that are social. So can you chat with me about how long you've been with Chicago Title and how what you do here for us?
I'm an old timer. I've been here since '96, so 24 years. Yep, 24 years. And I'm a system administrator for Ohio and Kansas, Missouri. What that basically means is that I'm responsible for helping users with their day-to-day computer needs. So if they have an issue with their computer or one of the applications they're using, I'm the one that they would call. I help with that. I keep them functioning so that they can serve our customers. And then I also do sales support for some of our online products, our mobile products. I work with agents and direct operations, training how to use those products. I actually work with some of our customers, doing tech support and helping them to use some of our products as well.
Well, what led us to this conversation today was a couple of weeks ago, my computer died, and Mykel and I were on the phone attempting to revive it. And he started sharing with me that he used to be in sales. And we had a fascinating conversation about relationship sales. So I really thought that it would be beneficial for our client base to kind of hear how you went about that. So way back in the day when you were younger, you started at a radio station. Is that right?
Yeah, I graduated. I always thought I wanted to do computers for a living, which is kind of funny because that's what I do for a living now. But went to college for telecommunications, which is radio and television broadcast. And I did that because I got kind of burned out on the computer thing. So about 3/4 of the way through my college career, I changed from computer science to telecommunications and decided to go that route. So I ended up taking a job as a disc jockey. And that ultimately led to a job in sales because the owner of the radio station had purchased a brand new radio station in another market. And they wanted to develop a sales territory there. So he approached me and asked if I would be willing to take a new job, opening up a new sales territory for a radio station he just purchased. So that's what I did, where I got my sales from.
Well, and I remember you specifically stating that, like, he told the guy, like, well, I don't know anything about sales. And he said, well, good, because we don't want you to know anything about. So how did that go? Why did they want somebody that didn't know anything about sales?
The owner of the company had a different philosophy. Typically, at that time, it's my understanding, and it's what my experience also seemed to validate, was that oftentimes radio sales was kind of an entry-level job. You just took it, you didn't have much experience, but you went through all the training courses on how to sell people things, how to not take no for an answer, how to turn every no into a yes. In fact, one of the famous lines was, a no is never a no, it just means they don't have enough information. And so that was typically the way they would train salespeople. And so you would go in and you would just sell. And in radio sales, they would walk in and drop a rate card on a desk. When the rate card basically said, you'll pay $5 for a commercial. If it's rush hour, you'll pay $4 if it's night, whatever it is. And so that's kind of the way radio sales worked. And he had a very different philosophy. His philosophy was more service-oriented and relationship-oriented, meaning we're not going in to sell commercials. Our whole purpose is to help that customer grow their business and make more money. And we can't do that just by giving them a rate sheet or selling them commercials. So he took the approach of actually going in and learning everything we could about a particular business. And then from that knowledge, we would be able to help them with their advertising, their marketing, not just in radio, but even maybe in some other avenues. And so I was actually prohibited from selling anything if I didn't know anything about that business. So I could not go in with a rate card. I could not ask for a sale unless I could demonstrate that I had learned something about that business. And so that was the approach. So he didn't want somebody that was trained in sales. He wanted somebody who was more people-oriented and able to communicate. He wanted somebody with communications kind of background, he felt. So with that in mind, knowing that that's the approach he was going to take, I felt more comfortable taking the position.
And then you ended up walking into a furniture sales place, and he was like, I am never going to buy anything from you, right?
Yeah, it was there. I think I actually shared two stories with you that were very similar. One of them was this furniture store. So there was a fairly well-known furniture store. It had been around, I think, almost 100 years. And he didn't know me from anybody else. In fact, my radio station was about 30 miles south, so it wasn't even in his home market. So the last thing he would want to see is some salesman from a radio station he doesn't listen to or wasn't even in the market.
Right.
So I walked into the business, and the first person to greet me was the receptionist. And, you have to introduce yourself, give them a business card. And she saw that I was in sales. She goes, "Well, just drop your rate card here." And I'm like, "Well, I don't have a rate card." And she looked at me kind of funny, And I just said, "I'm really just here to meet the owner." And she, a little funny because, he's the owner. Why should I, But she was willing to let me at least introduce myself. And so she pointed me back to his office, and I went back there. He was an older gentleman. And I just introduced myself to him, and immediately he just said, "I'm not interested. I spend all my money with, I think, the two largest competitors in the market." And I was like number 6. And he's like, "I spend all my money with them. I've been doing that for 40 years. They know me. I've had a relationship, blah, blah, blah," and all that kind of stuff. And I said, that's great. I'm not here to sell you anything." And he had a puzzled look on his face. And he's like, "Well, then why are you here?" And I said, "I'd like you to tell me about your business. I want to learn everything I can about furniture sales. Even if I don't get a deal from you, I believe you would be willing to tell me about your business." And what was interesting is he was willing to do that. He was a family man, a family-owned business for years. And he just talked. And so I went back once a week, and he would let me come into his office, knew I didn't have a rate card. He never thought he was going to do business with me, but he would tell me about his business. I learned more about where the furniture was built, their best lines, why people bought furniture. I learned about what things he had done in the past, what worked for advertising, what didn't. And so over the course of time, the guy just learned to look at me as somebody really interested in his business and interested in how his business grew. And I remember one time I was sitting there, and one of the other reps that I knew from the area came in and saw me sitting there. And he was from the number 1 station in the market. And this guy looked at me and said, "Just drop your rate card. I'm busy right now." And so the guy literally had to drop his rate card there and walked out of the office. I got to sit there and continue the conversation. I actually went back to my creative department, and we put together full commercials. That normally didn't happen. You usually got the order first, and then you put commercials together. We did it the other way around. We invested our time and energy. We paid our staff, and we put together a few of these fantastic spots with the information that I had gathered from him about how to sell furniture. And I went back into his office with a boombox one day, played it for him, and the look on his face was kind of priceless, because he looked at me, he said, "Wow, you did all this without an order." And I'm like, "Yeah, I really want to show you that I know what I'm doing. I can help your business." And he actually gave me an order that day. And in fact, within a matter of weeks, my commercials were the ones being used on all the local radio stations. And that became the pattern from then on out with him. Was he always came to me for advice on how to spend his radio dollars. And we ended up getting into even how to spend it into newspaper and even some TV stuff. He began to look at me as basically an unpaid employee, a marketing expert that understood not just furniture, but his specific family business.
That specific piece of it, because you didn't just sell an ad for your radio station. You helped him advertise on all radio stations in those other areas that you mentioned, and really added value. What we strive to do here at Chicago Title is not just help somebody close a transaction with us. We know that you're not going to be able to close 100% of transactions with us. You're going to have to work other places, but we want to be able to provide you with the tools so that you can do that well, efficiently. So how did you go from radio sales to IT at Chicago Title? And I love that story too.
I spent about a few years doing the radio thing, and was fairly successful at doing it. But I had always had a desire to go on to seminary. I love education. I wanted to work on a master's degree. And after I graduated, this couple of years, I just stayed there and I worked. But then I got a call from a professor of mine who invited me to move to Ohio to help start a brand new church. And my heart has always been to be what I call a tent maker, which is having a full-time job, but pastoring as a secondary. So when I moved here to Ohio to do that, that was the plan. I knew I needed a full-time job. I started looking around, and I don't know if you remember it, want ads is where you looked for a job. And so I went to the newspaper, and I saw this little tiny ad for a company called Chicago Title, who wanted a person who had computer experience, but also customer service experience, to come up with a way for realtors to submit title orders electronically and to order what we call property information packets, and the whole purpose behind it was make it easier for realtors to get their title orders to us, but then also provide them with a tool that would help them market the homes that they were listing. So the concept was already there, very similar to the sales experience I had, which was getting products to our customers to help them grow their business. So I took the job for about 3 months, or actually about 6 months. I realized it wasn't going very well because most realtors didn't have PCs. There's about 5%. So about 5% of the people I contacted said, yeah, we'd love to have your product. So I finally went back to my boss and said, you know what, if this is really about helping the customers, what they really need is not just our software, they need computers, and they don't have them. So I worked together with a local company here that would build us PCs that would sell them at a discount to realtors, started marketing those to realtors. They started buying them like crazy, but their biggest concern was we don't know how to use them. So I set up an opportunity to train them. So I would go out, and if they didn't have a PC, I'd say, here's a company that'll build them for you at a discount. I will train you how to use them. I'll even set them up in your business. And then we opened up one of our closing rooms as a training facility, and at time version of Microsoft Word, and how to use email, how to use the internet, and then obviously how to use our products to help your business. And it literally exploded to where we had to hire 2 additional people to help fill the need. And from there, they basically said, you know, now that you're doing all this for realtors, we need an IT guy ourselves to do us, because we didn't have PCs, we had dumb terminals. So I kind of moved over then into becoming the IT guy for Chicago Title. I set up our first email server and got us connected to the internet. And somehow I've just never left. But, you know, it's funny because I still do a lot of that same stuff. Like I said, I support about 5 states right now. I provide technical support for some of our online products that are designed to meet realtors' needs. And so I still interact with realtors. I still help salespeople when it comes to working with their customers and changes we might need to make to some of these products to add more value to our customers. So I still get to do some of that, even though my day-to-day stuff is mostly IT for the company. I still get to sort of put some of those things into practice that focus on helping realtors grow their business or helping lenders to grow their business, which I love.
And we weren't paying for those computers. You know, we're just like, hey, here's a great product. You should check this out. I'll help you use it. And we're still doing that kind of thing today. And as the industry continues to change and grow, I want our customers to know, you know, we're going to continue to provide you with the education that you need and the products that are going to help you be most successful in this business. And that's why you should work with Chicago Title. This was so much fun. Thank you. Thank you very much. You're my favorite IT guy. So, all right. Thank you all for joining us. And don't forget to close with Chicago Title. Have a great day.